In today's episode, remote mines in the facility. Hi everyone, John here. If you're watching this on September 29th, 2016, it's the 20th anniversary of the Nintendo 64. I know this intro sounds a lot like the start of my first video, but I assure you, not every video is going to be about some anniversary or birthday of Nintendo. But I really wanted to recognize the 20th anniversary of the N64 because I just think, well, first of all, it's amazing that 20 years have gone by already. Like 20 years, that makes me feel old. In North America, every Nintendo platform, with the possible exception of the Wii U, has had a lifespan of between 5 and 6 years before being replaced by the next console. It's like even the GameCube had 5 years and 1 day, and the Wii had 5 years and 365 days, which is not 6 years because 2012 is a leap year. Anyways, I was 16 when the Nintendo 64 came out, so that was a really long time ago. Yeah, 16 years old. Now I'm really dating myself. I don't remember how I knew about it at the time because in '96 I think we just started getting the internet, or we did in 1995, and it was like Freenet, it was a dial-in, whatever. So I don't remember if I heard about it there or through BBS's. I don't know how many of you remember what BBS's are, but well. Anyways, somehow I learned about this store called AV Power Square. Well, I think it was called AV Power Square. The membership card said AV Power with a 2 exponent, so it's like AV Power Squared. But I think in written materials it said AV Power Square, so either it was square or squared. Either way, it was this import video game shop in West Edmonton, and I heard it had the Nintendo 64. Back in those days, game consoles would get released in Japan first, and considerably before they came out in North America. So in the summer of '96, before the N64 came out, I went to this AV Power Squared place after I somehow found it, and I remember playing like the N64 like for the first time. It was like the Japanese version of Super Mario 64, and I didn't know what I was doing. You know, it was all in Japanese, and I can't read Japanese. When I got to the top of the Bob-omb battlefield with King Bob-omb there, I would like throw him off the side. It's like, hey, this seems like a logical way to beat a boss, right? Throw him off the cliff. Anyways, yeah, so that was a really cool store. Rented a lot of cool Super Famicom games, like some Bomberman sequels, and yeah, there were some like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon fighting games. It was a good time. Anyways, so yeah, the N64 was like one of the first consoles that I was like super hyped about. Like, I was aware of the Super Famicom before the Super Nintendo came out, but the Nintendo 64 was a big deal because it was like 3D graphics. It was like 64 bits. It's like we skipped over from, you know, 8 to 16 and now 64 bits. Like, we just jumped over 32. I mean, okay, there was the Virtual Boy, but I mean, in terms of a home console, it was like, that's gotta be at least 4 times better, right? It's crazy. Playing the game at the import store really felt like it was quite a sneak peek. I mean, it wasn't really. I mean, anyone could go to the store and play it as well, but it was like months. When you're 16 and your whole life is like school, homework, video games, when you're younger, it feels like time moves much more slower. So even though it was maybe, I'd have to check, but it would be a few months before the Japanese release and a North American release of the Nintendo 64, it felt like an eternity. So to be able to play it, the sneak peek at this import store, it's like I'm playing something that my friends won't know about for like forever. These days, it's like, oh, the game's coming out next year, great, I'll play it then. You know, it's like I'm just so busy. There's enough to fill my time. When it comes out. I mean, you know, some things I'm really excited for, like the NX is still going to be really exciting. I can't believe we've been hearing about it for over a year. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, it'll show up. I mean, the review is going to be any day now, and then even if it comes out in March, even if it's delayed, well, I mean, I hope it doesn't get delayed. But my point is that the wait doesn't seem as bad as it did then. So I was super hyped about the N64, and I remember when they finally had like display kiosks in like Toys R Us. So we would play the N64 at Toys R Us, but it was like, you know what, we've played this before, we know where to go. It's like, here, let us show you how to get through Bob-omb Battlefield or Womp's Fortress, and it was like, whoa, it's like, how do you know how to do that? Yeah, it was like we had the inside scoop. And man, wasn't the controller crazy? I mean, look, you had like 3 prongs. Who has 3 hands, right? You could hold it like different ways. I don't know, did we ever use this version with that? I don't know. Like, I recall seeing this somewhere, but certainly wasn't common. Most things were like this, or like this. And Nintendo came up with the Z trigger button, and now other consoles have trigger buttons too. So, yeah. Nintendo also came up with the stick, the analog stick, bringing that back. And force feedback, come on, the rumble pack, okay? Like, DualShock totally ripped off the sticks and the force feedback. I've got this poster here that I made. Ugh. So I made this poster. I have Nintendo and Super Nintendo ones as well. But this one shows all 296 North American released Nintendo 64 games. So this will help me to remember. The Nintendo 64 library of 296 games is much smaller than the PlayStation's of like, I think it's over 1440 games. So yeah, it's much smaller, but I mean, this is one of those times where it's like quality over quantity. Or is it really? Because when I look at these games, a lot of these games I don't really know. But of course we had some great games coming out of it, that era. Certainly so many 3D games borrow from Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Oh, I should show you this Super Mario 64 cartridge. It was signed by Charles Martinet at the last Calgary Expo. You can see here it says, woohoo! And then it says, here we go! I'm not going to imitate the voice. It says, here we go! Your pal Mario. Signed by Charles Martinet with a smiley face. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Nintendo lost a lot of third-party support in this era because of their decision to use cartridges. It was just so much more costly to develop for. So the N64 didn't have as many games as the competition. But the games that were good, like the ones specifically by Nintendo and Rare, like Rare, that was like pretty much the Rare machine. Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, GoldenEye 007. Perfect Dark was pretty good. Conker's Bad Fur Day, not quite as good as the Banjo games, but yeah, it was interesting, I guess. Jet Force Gemini may not have been a big name, but it was certainly a quality game. I should probably show off the shield that I got from fiberglassblades.com. The guy that made these doesn't really make these anymore. I think he went to focus on animation or something. So I bought one of these because he wasn't going to make very many more at the time. And I could have chosen the Twilight Princess version of this shield and the Master Sword. But I decided to choose the Ocarina of Time version just because, well, I just think it's a better game. So, I mean, I would say that I like A Link to the Past a little bit more, maybe, just a little bit. But of the 3D games, Ocarina of Time is definitely the most iconic. And now classic. So, yeah. I remember I loved Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time so much that after I finished it, I started a new file and played it all the way through again right away. It was just awesome. I also really liked The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Seems like some people hate it, some people love it. I think I'm in the category that loves it. The weirdest arguments against Majora's Mask is that some people think it's too much like Ocarina of Time. Other people complain that it's too different with its time system. Not every game in the series has to be exactly the same as the others. What's the point of playing the same game over and over again? But Majora's Mask was great because it had it really felt alive with all these townspeople doing different things at certain times of day. You had many side quests that would reward you with masks that you could actually take back in time. Anyways, yeah, just go play Majora's Mask. Stop hating on it. And the first Paper Mario game, holy cow, just an amazing game. I remember when it was first mentioned, whether it was in Nintendo Power or somewhere, that it was going to be Super Mario RPG 2, and people were totally against it because it didn't look at all like the original. But I mean, we were all proven wrong. That game is amazing. I hope Paper Mario Color Splash is also going to be an amazing game. But yeah, the original, wow, that's just, go play it if you haven't. So this is where the Mario Party series started. And up until 8, it was a yearly installment. The first 3 were on N64, and those were all really good. Mario played golf and tennis before on the NES and the Virtual Boy, but Mario Golf and Mario Tennis here, I think, were really the start of the Mario sports era, I guess, that we're probably still in. Kirby 64. The Miracle Matter boss fight, that's got to be one of the best Kirby boss fights, like, ever. It's just so cool with all the different powers that the boss has, and he uses them against them. Anyways, just play it. Pokemon Stadium was cool with the transfer pack that you could stick in the Game Boy games. You can transfer your Pokemon over. That was really neat. And Pokemon Snap. Who remembers printing off the stickers at Blockbuster of the snapshots that you took? I never did get a Mew picture worth 10,000 points. That Professor Oak never liked my photos of Mew. I never really played much F-Zero on the Super Nintendo, but I played a lot of F-Zero X. That was good. Star Fox 64. I remember I finished that the first night I had it. Such a good game, Star Fox, yeah. I think Star Fox 64 is one of those rare N64 sequels that's better than the Super Nintendo version. It's not really a sequel, it's like a reboot. And then there's Star Fox 64 3D on a 3DS. But Star Fox Zero is supposed to be a reboot. Aren't they all the same game? Anyways, I enjoyed Star Fox 64. I remember being blown away by the voice acting. It was just... Yeah, I know, there was a bunch of memes about it, but I actually thought at the time that it was really cool that it had voice acting. So the N64, with its four-player ports, you know, four-player standard, you know, certainly a lot of memories, you know, like GoldenEye, of course. We spent so many hours playing that with friends, and it's just like, you know, I would have this weird thing where I would play, if we were playing remote mines in the facility, I would put the remote mines in the urinals, and then when someone came up to the bathroom, then I would like blow them up. I don't know. After a while, they never came up to the bathroom. But anyways, I don't know why I did that. I was just a sicko or something. The World Is Not Enough is not as good. And Perfect Dark was kind of neat. It had the Farsight, that gun that you shoot through walls. Well, yeah, obviously you wouldn't play that with two players, but so that was interesting. And the laptop gun and all the secondary functions. So Perfect Dark was really cool. But it just wasn't quite the same as GoldenEye. It's sure a spiritual successor, but it just wasn't as good. So the rareware games, like I'm thinking of Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Jet Force Gemini, Donkey Kong 64, and I guess you can include Conker's Bad Fur Day in there, even though I personally didn't really like it. I mean, yeah, okay, I get it. It had over-the-top, mature humor, but I mean, it was like, even though I was 17, 18, 19, however old I was at the time, it was like really... But yeah, all those collectathon games, like I was so proud about collecting everything in Donkey Kong 64 on a rental. Well, I finished a lot of games 100% on a rental, but DK64, there was so much to do in there, that was pretty impressive, I think. My gosh, Killer Instinct Gold and Super Mario 64 were the first games that we got for our Nintendo 64. I remember in the arcades, they were like bragging about Killer Instinct being on the Nintendo Ultra 64.
Available for your home in 1995, only on Nintendo Ultra 64.
And it was like, whoa. It actually surprised me to learn that Killer Instinct is like the first arcade game to have a hard drive to store all the data. Anyways, yeah, I remember thinking that it was weird that they would port Killer Instinct over to the Super Nintendo. It's like... But it's designed for the Nintendo Ultra 64. Anyways, the Super Nintendo version of Killer Instinct was good, but it didn't have the same bleeping graphics as the commercial said.
Same graphics, same moves. It looks like the arcade, man!
But yeah, Killer Instinct Gold, which was sort of a version of Killer Instinct 2. My gosh, me and Jace played that so much. One time I challenged Jason to do all 30 Ultras and Ultimates in a row without failing. And he actually did it.
All I can say is...
It was just crazy. It was like, whoa, it's like... Yeah, Jason's really good at Killer Instinct Gold. Mortal Kombat 4 and Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero were less than stellar. But you know, Mortal Kombat Trilogy was one of the best, is still one of the best Mortal Kombat games. Even though it is in 2D, it was just great. All the characters, and it didn't have like loading times like the PlayStation version. I'd say that about a lot of games, really. Fighter's Destiny and Fighter Destiny 2. Yeah, there's no apostrophe S. It's just Fighter Destiny 2. The Fighter's Destiny games were interesting in just the different ways that you could score points to defeat opponents. It wasn't just like a KO thing. I mean, you could knock them down, you could knock them off, or you could use other techniques. Flying Dragon is another quirky 3D fighting game. I know Jason really likes to play that. Dark Rift and Mace the Dark Age, those are good N64 fighting games as well. The wrestling games, like all the WCW, NWO games, were great. One thing I was really disappointed about was that the N64 had a joystick and a 6-button layout that should have made it perfect for fighting games. Like, you know, Capcom's fighting games with the standard 3 punches, 3 kicks. It'd be so easy to do 360-degree moves with a stick. But no, Capcom barely supported the N64. I think they put out like a couple games, like Magical Tetris Challenge or something. I'd have to check. But it wasn't very many games, and it wasn't the Street Fighter games. Wasn't Resident Evil 2 pretty much on every platform? I think Resident Evil 2 was the first Resident Evil game on a Nintendo platform. I'd have to check if Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color came before or after that. Castlevania wasn't quite the same, but hey, it's still fun, I guess, in a way. I think they are removed from the official canon timeline. The N64 didn't get a whole lot of RPGs. That's the one sad thing. I remember, like, Quest 64 just wasn't that great. My brother really loved Ogre Battle 64 though. Holy cow, that's a good game. The Bomberman games, they certainly felt different than the 2D offerings, but I remember really liking Bomberman 64 story-wise. When I finished it, I was like so proud of that. Mischief Makers, that was fun. Quirky, just sort of anime adventure game with like this girl, robot girl that was on this planet called Clancer or something. And there are all these guys that look like they had like Scream masks. You know what? I don't know. It was a lot of fun. If you like NBA Jam, like the 1990s era NBA Jam, NBA Hang Time is great on the N64. It's more of the same, but you don't need to go into 3D graphics necessarily just because you're on the N64. It was weird that there were some PC game ports on the N64, like there was Carmageddon and StarCraft and Doom and Duke Nukem and Hexen. I don't really understand the divide between console gamers and computer gamers, but in these cases I just feel like wouldn't you just rather play the computer versions of those games? I also forgot about Quake. That's another PC game on the N64 that I don't know if it was really necessary. Yeah, a lot of people pick on Superman. They call it Superman 64, but it doesn't actually say 64 on the title anywhere. But anyway, Superman 64 or not, the one on the N64 is widely considered the worst game. It's pretty bad. But anyways, enough about that. I played a lot of N64 games, and Blockbuster sure got a lot of my money. It was good times, and I finished many of those games on rentals too. Yeah, I still did well in school, okay? I played a lot of N64. Wow, this was just supposed to be a quick reminiscing of the N64, but I apparently remember a lot more than I thought I did. So why don't you join the discussion and comment below what your favorite N64 experiences were. There's probably something I'm forgetting about the N64, and I know N64 games are really popular to collect. I think 20-somethings with disposable income are wanting to collect the N64, and it's not as many games as the NES or Super NES library. When I made these posters, these like entire library collages, like the N64 posters like sold out like that, pretty much. I might have like one left or something. But I still have a few NES and Super NES posters, so I guess if you're interested, let me know, I guess. And since this is a Nintendo related video, I'd like to remind you that I'm selling Kickstarter backer versions of the Nintendo Quest DVD. It's about a guy trying to collect all the NES games in 1 month without any online purchases. So he goes on a road trip across Ontario and the United States. Anyways, I think this is like super interesting if you're a Nintendo fan, so definitely check it out. Remember, this is the Kickstarter version that has the exclusive audio commentary not found elsewhere. As always, don't forget to check out VGMaps.com, the video game atlas, the website that I run. It has a whole bunch of video game maps. And just because the N64 primarily had 3D games doesn't mean they can't be mapped. Perdian, a regular on VGMaps, has mapped out Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Paper Mario, Super Smash Brothers. It's just amazing that people can find a way to do things if they really want to do it. So mapping out 3D games, not a problem. So definitely check out those maps, but of course VGMaps has maps from like a whole bunch of other games and a whole bunch of other consoles and platforms. Okay, I think I've done enough ranting, so yeah, join the discussion in the comments, and thanks for watching. Bye.